Hello and welcome to High Caliber TV, your source for figure and model updates every Wednesday and Friday. Today I'm going to be taking a look at some of the work in progress pieces for my LAVIII vignette that's going into IPMS Seattle this year. The first is the Canadian LAVIII. It's a trumpeter kit, injection molded 1/35 scale. I used two major weathering techniques on this. The first was I took extra acrylic sand colors, diluted them until they were basically water, and then took a thin brush and drew vertical lines of various thicknesses. And that simulates rain and water damage that builds up over time and drips down. The second, and the main one, is that I mixed up a MIG filter using Vallejo pigment and MIG thinner. This is really great for doing any dust effects on figures or vehicles, buildings, things like that. You just mix it up, brush it over everything that you want to be dusty, and then you leave it for 15 minutes to dry. Once it's dry, you take a stiff brush and scrape away all the excess stuff, and you're left with a really subtle effect, as even you can't really see it in this light, but there are areas that are obviously dusty, but then the entire model is also covered in a really thin filter of dust. Being a Canadian Armed Forces vehicle, it's quite dull. It's just a green box with wheels, but the dust effect gives you a really great contrast. Yeah, so there's that. The second piece that I'm showing off today is an ancient VLS kit, all resin. It's of the 1991 Gulf War ruin. It's intended to be a Kuwait or Iraq base, but I saw this detail here, and it reminded me of the air vents that Afghan farmers use to dry grapes in their fields, and so that's why I decided it'd work for this. The main gripe I had with this kit, other than the massive gaps, which were basically on any contact point for parts, was the fact that the interior is completely devoid of all texture, even up here, which you could clearly see. I had to take an aggressive amount of squadron body fill and texture the entire inside just to give it something so that it didn't look like, you know, resin. Just a really great kit when all's said and done. Yeah. The whole reason for the diorama was as a backdrop for the Canadian soldiers from Black Dog Miniatures. Here you can see the RTO, or radio telegraph operator signaler. He's in arid CAD-PAT, so he's rotation 07, 08, etc. up till now. I used an airbrush to block in the main colors of the arid CAD-PAT. Did the base, then tilted him like that to do the shadows, and then downward using the airbrush as the light source to do the highlights. Airbrush is fantastic if you've got more than one figure, or if you're just trying to block in the colors without obscuring any detail or getting that weird rough effect that you get once you apply too many coats of paint with a brush. There were 4 figures, 2 troopers and 2 LAV crew. Here you can see them. The whole reason I'm using these figures is because you see a lot of Canadian, or if you see any Canadian vignettes, people have been forced to use American equipment like Interceptor, Molly gear, blah blah blah, all that stuff, which is fine, but they never really capture the eccentricities, the little things in the Canadian equipment, like these shoulder protection, the Kevlar. They look like pauldrons, and there's a couple different variations in use in the Canadian Armed Forces at the moment. The Interceptor, the plate carrier I mean, is unique to the Canadian Armed Forces. You can't find it anywhere else. So unless you're scratch building it, it's not going to look proper, in my eyes anyway. As you can see, Black Dog has even gone down to the details used with the recoil absorbing pads on the vest where the carbine would fit for right and left-handed shooters, which is a fantastic detail. Spare magazines, blah 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 blah. Even the Canadian style helmet, which is not the MICH American helmet, it's its own thing, just like the Canadian C7 is not an M16. So if you know what you're looking at, you know the difference. So there's my rant on Canadian equipment for the day. Hopefully these guys are going to be finished by IPMS Seattle, which occurs at the end of April this year. Thanks very much for watching. Please follow us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, Pinterest, blah blah blah. Thanks very much. Bye.